The Chiefs are not only well-rested as they prepare for the divisional round of the playoffs, but they've also landed in one of the best possible scenarios after the AFC wildcard round. It's shaping up to be a perfect setup for their run at a three-peat. In today's video, I'll break down why this is such a great position for the Chiefs, discuss some recent coaching interviews, highlight the latest roster moves, and more. But first, let's talk about the wildcard round. With most of the games wrapped up, except for the Vikings and Rams showdown tonight, there's been plenty of excitement. On the Chiefs' side, we've had some big updates in the last few days. Offensive coordinator Matt Nagy recently interviewed for the New York Jets head coach position. Will he get it? Hard to say, since the Jets have been talking to a lot of candidates. Speaking of the Jets, they also interviewed Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi for their GM opening. Mike Borgonzi, the Chiefs' assistant general manager, also interviewed with the Titans for their general manager position. If you didn't know, Borgonzi has been a key figure for the Chiefs over the years, steadily climbing the ranks to become GM Brett Veach's right-hand man. Borgonzi oversees the Chiefs' college and professional scouting operations, plays a significant role in the draft, and advises Veach on roster management, including free agency, trades, and waiver claims. He's been instrumental in shaping the team's success. With Matt Nagy possibly leaving for a head coaching job, the Chiefs might need a new offensive coordinator. I've talked about potential replacements for Nagy in another video, so check that out if you're interested. But it doesn't stop there. If Borgonzi lands a GM job with either the Jets or the Titans, the Chiefs could also find themselves needing to replace their assistant GM. Honestly, either of those teams would be smart to hire someone like Borgonzi. It's no surprise that Mike Borgonzi isn't the only Chiefs staff member drawing attention. Defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo had 3 virtual interviews on Friday alone. One of those interviews was with the Jets, who seem determined to talk to every Chiefs staffer they can. The Raiders, who recently parted ways with both their head coach and GM, also interviewed Spags, as did the Jaguars. In a recent press conference, Spagnuolo expressed his desire to be a head coach again, and these interviews show that he's actively pursuing that opportunity. Whether or not he lands with one of these teams remains to be seen, but Spags absolutely deserves another chance at the top job. As a Chiefs fan, I'd hate to see him go. His impact has been incredible, but no matter where he ends up, the 4-time Super Bowl champion will bring immense value to any organization. Now, if he ends up coaching the Raiders, let's just say that thought makes me a little queasy. If Spagnuolo does leave, the next defensive coordinator for the Chiefs will have some big shoes to fill. The consistency of this coaching staff has been a hugely underrated factor in the Chiefs' success, and I selfishly hope Spags stays in Kansas City to keep that streak alive. The Chiefs' success isn't just about one player or coach. It's a combination of factors that have created a dynasty since Patrick Mahomes took over as QB1. But there's no denying how crucial Coach Spagnuolo has been to this organization. Now, if you're worried that all these interviews might distract the Chiefs staff from preparing for the divisional round, don't be. These interviews were only allowed because of the team's bye week. From now on, no more interviews can take place until the Chiefs' season is over, which we're all hoping isn't until they secure their 3rd straight Super Bowl title. Next up, let's talk about some big news from the Associated Press. The Associated Press released their All-Pro Honors team on Friday, a list determined by a national panel of 50 media members. This year, 4 Chiefs players earned votes, and 3 of them were named First-Team All-Pro: left guard, or left tackle when needed, Joe Thuney, center Creed Humphrey, and defensive tackle Chris Jones. Meanwhile, cornerback Trent McDuffie was voted Second-Team All-Pro, falling just behind Patrick Surtain II and Derek Stingley Jr. While some fans are disappointed about certain players missing the list, there's not much that can be done now. Personally, I think Trey Smith deserved a spot. He's been outstanding, and the Chiefs should prioritize keeping him around for years to come, especially with his free agency approaching at the end of the season. That's a discussion for another day. You could also make a strong case for McDuffie as a first-team selection, but either way, I'm thrilled for the players who made the cut. It's always great to see talent being recognized. Next, let's dive into some more exciting player news. Here's a heartwarming story from last week. Chiefs fan William Mashburn saw cornerback Jaylen Watson asking for a shovel on X, formerly Twitter, to clear his driveway. Instead of letting Watson do it himself, William messaged him, got his address, and showed up to shovel the driveway for him. In return, Watson surprised him with an autographed jersey. But William didn't do it for the reward. He just wanted to lend a hand to a fellow Kansas Citian and a player who's been incredible for the team. The feel-good moments didn't stop there. Over the weekend, offensive linemen Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith were spotted helping a woman get her car unstuck from the icy roads. It's moments like these that remind us how much the Chiefs players care about their community. And if that wasn't enough, the Mahomes family shared some big news. Patrick and his wife announced the birth of their third child, Golden Ray Mahomes. Patrick had previously mentioned his goal of securing a first-round bye to ensure the baby could arrive before the playoffs, and everything worked out perfectly. Now, with his family safe and healthy, Mahomes can fully focus on leading the team to victory this weekend. Let's dive into the Chiefs' recent roster moves and their implications for the Divisional Round matchup. On Friday, the Chiefs signed 2 players to reserve/future contracts. If you're unfamiliar, these contracts don't count against the salary cap until the new league year begins. They're typically used for free agents or practice squad players from eliminated teams. Once signed, players are locked in with their team and can no longer negotiate with others. It's worth noting that wide receiver Jaylen Watson was signed to a futures deal back in February 2022, and he eventually carved out a spot on the 53-man roster. So, don't count these players out just yet. The first signing was defensive back Jason Taylor II. A 25-year-old safety out of Oklahoma State, Taylor was drafted by the Rams in the 7th round of the 2023 NFL Draft. Though he has limited NFL experience, playing just 8 games and recording 5 tackles, he's an athletic standout with impressive vertical and broad jumps, plus elite speed. He spent time with both the Rams and Cardinals practice squads last season. The second signing was linebacker Shaun Bradley, a 27-year-old drafted by the Eagles in the 6th round of the 2020 NFL Draft. Bradley played 3 seasons with Philadelphia, recording 45 tackles. What really stands out is his work on special teams, where he logged over 300 snaps per season. Special teams coordinator Dave Taub will likely see Bradley as a valuable addition in that role. In other news, the Chiefs placed defensive tackle Marlon Tuipulotu on injured reserve. Tuipulotu, who played a decent amount of snaps in the Week 18 finale, will now be sidelined. This move could impact the defensive line's depth as the playoffs heat up. These roster moves may not grab headlines, but they show how the Chiefs are constantly working to strengthen their team for both the short and long term. It seems the injury bug has hit again, with defensive tackle Marlon Tuipulotu now placed on injured reserve following the Broncos game. While details of his injury remain unclear, we hope for a speedy recovery. With Tuipulotu sidelined, the Chiefs now have an open spot on their 53-man roster. This could signal the potential return of either cornerback Jaylen Watson or wide receiver Mecole Hardman, as both have had their 21-day practice windows activated. Between the two, Watson seems like the more impactful addition. Since breaking his ankle in Week 7 and undergoing surgery, the Chiefs' secondary has noticeably struggled, with key defensive stats declining. His return would be a massive boost. That said, Hardman might be ready before Watson. After undergoing a minor knee procedure, Hardman could step in as a depth option for the offense or provide niche contributions in certain packages. However, there's a question of what happens with Nico Remigio, who's been performing well as the team's returner. If Hardman returns, the Chiefs might face a tough decision. Keep Remigio on the active roster or take the risk of waiving him and re-signing him to the practice squad. Ultimately, Hardman offers offensive versatility, while Watson fills a critical need in the secondary. It's possible the Chiefs bring back both players, and we should know soon which direction they take. As for the bigger picture, the Chiefs' ability to get key players healthy ahead of the playoffs could play a huge role in their postseason success. Key players are starting to return to practice, which is great news for the Chiefs. Safety Shamari Connor, who had been dealing with both a concussion and a shoulder injury, was back on the field. Joining him were defensive tackle Chris Jones, calf strain, running back Isaiah Pacheco, ribs, right tackle Jawan Taylor, knee, and cornerback Jaylen Watson. According to Andy Reid, Watson looked sharp during one-on-one drills, moving well and showing promise for the divisional round. Reid also provided an update on left tackle DJ Humphries, saying he's progressing well after playing in Week 18 against the Broncos. However, there's still uncertainty about whether Humphries will start in the divisional round or if the Chiefs will stick with Joe Thuney at left tackle. Reed acknowledged a couple of rough plays from Humphries in the second half of the Broncos game, but left the final decision open. Speaking of the divisional round, the Chiefs will face the Houston Texans, a team they beat back on December 21st during a grueling stretch of 3 games in 11 days, all of which Kansas City won. The Texans, however, come into this matchup riding high after dismantling the Chargers in the wildcard round. It was a surprising outcome, especially with Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert throwing 4 interceptions. This after tossing just 3 all season before that game. The Chiefs are favored to win, but the Texans' wildcard performance serves as a reminder that anything can happen in the playoffs. Kansas City will need to be sharp to ensure their postseason run continues. The Chargers' playoff loss to the Texans was a disaster on many fronts. Justin Herbert was sacked 4 times and struggled, throwing 4 interceptions, one of which was returned for a pick-6. Another interception came right after and nearly resulted in a second pick-6, instead setting up a Texans field goal. In total, the Chargers gave away 10 points from turnovers alone. On top of that, they only converted 3 out of 11 third downs, turned the ball over on downs once, and went 0 for 1 in the red zone. While the Texans weren't perfect either, going 5 for 14 on third downs, they were much more efficient in the red zone, converting 2 out of 4 opportunities. Eric Murray's pick-6 turned what had been a close 6-13 game into a 6-20 score that the Chargers couldn't recover from. Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud threw for nearly 300 yards and a touchdown, while Joe Mixon and Nico Collins each had over 100 yards, securing the Texans a convincing win. Now, the Texans are headed to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs in frigid temperatures, likely around 10 to 15 degrees, with wind chills potentially near 0. The game is set for Saturday at 3:30 p.m., and the Chiefs are currently 8-point favorites. The over-under is set at 42 points. Honestly, I'd be shocked if the Chiefs lost this one. This is the ideal matchup for them, especially compared to facing the Broncos or Chargers. Would you really want to face the Chargers again with their defense and Justin Herbert's playoff struggles? I think the Texans are a better matchup. The Chiefs already beat the Broncos earlier this season with a blocked field goal, and both of their games with the Chargers were one-score affairs. Given all that, the Texans are a matchup I'm happy with. While I like the Texans as opponents, it would have been great to see the Steelers make it. But here's the upside to the Steelers losing. The Ravens and Bills now have to face off, and only one of them will move on. That means if the Chiefs get past the Texans, they'll only have to face one of those teams. Of course, you can't overlook any team in the playoffs, but the Chiefs beat the Texans by 8 back on December 21st. They even took a knee inside the Texans' 20-yard line, which shows they could have scored more than the 27 points if needed. Mahomes threw for 260 yards and a touchdown, while Kareem Hunt averaged 5 yards per carry. This was also Hollywood Brown's debut, catching 5 passes for 45 yards, with Xavier Worthy leading the team with 7 catches for 65 yards. Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud threw 2 interceptions, one by Jaden Hicks and another by Trent McDuffie. Kansas City controlled the game, winning the time of possession battle, converting 50% of third and fourth downs, and going 3 for 5 in the red zone. I expect the Chiefs to win again, but I'll save the full breakdown for a later video when I preview the Texans vs. Chiefs divisional matchup. As for the AFC, the Broncos were crushed 31-7 by the Buffalo Bills, with nothing coming after their initial drive. The Ravens also dominated the Steelers, winning by 2 touchdowns in a game that wasn't close. This sets up an exciting Sunday evening showdown between the Ravens and Bills, with the winner taking on the Chiefs or Texans in the AFC Championship. If the Chiefs beat the Texans, they'll host the AFC Championship at Arrowhead. Who wins the Ravens vs. Bills game? It's hard to say right now. Earlier in the season, the Ravens handed the Bills a humiliating 35-10 defeat, but both teams are strong. Both quarterbacks are in the MVP race, and Derrick Henry's power makes the Ravens a formidable team. This is one matchup we'll all be watching closely. In the NFC, the Commanders head to Detroit to face the Lions right after the Texans and Chiefs game on Saturday. Then, on Sunday, before the Ravens and Bills play, the winner of tonight's Vikings vs. Rams wildcard game will travel to Philly to take on the Eagles. The Commanders beat the Buccaneers in a thrilling Sunday night game, while the Eagles cruised past the Packers, who lost multiple starters to injury. I'm beyond excited for more football this weekend. Let me know your thoughts on Wild Card Weekend and the Texans traveling to KC in freezing weather to take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs will be well rested and ready, but I'm curious about your predictions. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, let's go. How about those Chiefs?